Did you know the meaning of call around? To call around is to call a lot of different people. To call off is to cancel a plan or an event. Yes, Peter, how are you doing? Yes, I want to know how much Peter's house costs. How much does Peter's house cost? Oh, 20 million. That is a lot of money. I can't afford it. Let me ask John. Yes, John, how are you doing? Just, I want to buy Peter's house. Can you please tell me how much Peter's house costs? Oh, 25 million. That is a lot of money. I can't get it. Let me ask Mary. Hey, Mary, how are you doing? I want to know the information from Peter's house. Can you please tell me how much Peter's house costs? Oh, 22 million. Oh, that is a lot of money. The action that I've been doing is to call around. Do you know the meaning of call around? To call around ni uguhamagara abantu benshi. That is to call a lot of people in order to get information. That is to call around. Did you know the meaning of call around? To call around is to call a lot of different people in order to get the information from them. To call around. I am going to teach you a very wonderful lesson. I'm going to teach you some phrasal verbs with verb to call. I am teacher Jasper as always. Nuvuga ngo nabazaga abantu batandukanye mbahamagara kuri telefone nshaka kumenya igiciro mu by'ukuri cy'inzu ya Peter cyangwa inzu ya John. Yes, ubwo urumva ko nagerageje guhamagara abantu batatu bose. Niba ugiye yukoze igikorwa cyitwa to call around, ni uguhamagara abantu benshi kugira ngo umenye amakuru ku kintu runaka. Because I wanted to buy Peter's house. Nashakaga kugura inzu ya Peter, mpamagara wenda inshuti ze. Good. That is to call around. Yes. We are going to get started with our today's word, which is a calling. Do you know the meaning of a calling in English language? A calling is a vocation. Vocation. A calling. A vocation. Umuhamagaro. A vocation. For example, you can say, nshobora kukubaza nti, which calling do you have in your life? Which calling do you have in your life? Mu buzima bwawe ufite uwuhe muhamagaro? A calling. For example, you can say, Peter has a calling, has a good calling. Yes, teaching is my calling. What is your calling? Or which calling do you have? Mu by'ukuri ufite uwuhe muhamagaro? Yes, that man has preaching calling. Uriya mugabo afite umuhamagaro wo kubwiriza, wo kuvuga ubutumwa. That is a calling, a vocation. Fantastic. That is our today's word. Then we are going to start with the first phrasal verb that I have prepared today. The first phrasal verb is to call off. What is the meaning of call off in English language? To call off is to cancel. To cancel a plan or an event. That is to call off. To cancel a plan or an event. To call off. Gusubika. Guhagarika gahunda wari ufite cyangwa se ibyo wari wateguye gukora. That is to call off in English language. The meeting has been called off. Ubuvuze ngo inama yasubitswe. Gusubika, guhagarika icyo wari wateguye. That is to call off in English language. Did you call off that meeting? Ese ya nama mwarayisubitse? Yes, we called it off. Yego twarayisubitse. Good. For example, I can say, hano ushobora kuvuga uti, they called off the tennis match because it was raining too much. They called off the tennis match. Ubuvuze uti basubitse umukino wa tennis. Because it was raining too much. Kubera ko imvura yagwaga cyane. They called off. Simple past of call off is called off. Fantastic. Then the second phrasal verb of today is this one. To call round. To call round. Not to call around. We are going to see the difference between call round and to call around. To call round. To call round is to pay a short visit. To visit someone or to pay a short visit is to call round. Muri make iyo ugiye gusura umuntu by'akanya gato, will you say just I'm going to call round Paul? Yes, I am going to call round Paul. Ngiye gusura John by'akanya gato. That is to call round. Cyangwa ngiye gusura John. For example, I can say I will call round John tonight. Iri joro ndaza gusura John. Ndamucaho, ndamugeraho. I will call round John tonight. Yes. Do you call round people? Ese ujya ugerageza gusura abantu? Yes, I do. You can say, yes, teacher, I do. I call round different people. Or I call round my friends when I have time. Nsura inshuti zanjye mfite umwanya. To call round ni ukugira gute? Gusura umuntu. Nice. Then we have to call around. To call around. You should know the difference between call round and to call around. To call around, that is the action that I have already shown you. Nicho gikorwa naberetse mu kanya. To call around. To call around is to call a lot of people for information in order to get information. You want to call round, to call around. To call around ni uguhamagara abantu benshi in order to get information, or is to call a lot of people for information kugira ngo ugire amakuru ubona. Yes, for example, urashaka kugura inzu, umuntu umwe arakubwiye ngo ni miliyoni 20, undi ni miliyoni 30, undi ni miliyoni 40, ushaka kugira amakuru. That time we are going to use verb to call around. For example, you can say, let me call around before buying that house. Let me call around before buying that house. To call around. Reka mbanze mbaza abantu benshi mbere yo kugura iriya nzu. Let me call around before buying that house. Kambanze nkurura amakuru mu bantu benshi batandukanye. That is to call around. Do you call around when you want to get some information? Ese hari igihe ujya uhamagara abantu benshi iyo ushaka kumenya amakuru? Good. Then it is good to call around. Nice. Then here we have number 4, to call back. Do you know the meaning of call back? To call back is to return a phone call. To call back is to return a phone call. Uzakoresha call back iryari? Uzayikoresha mu gihe uri busy, uhuze. For example, you are in a meeting, uri mu nama, and someone is calling you, but you don't have the time to call or to pick the call. You don't have the time to pick the call. Nta mwanya ufite wo kumwitaba. Uzahita umubwira uti, uzamwohereza message. Please, I will call you back after meeting. I am somehow busy with the meeting. Ubu mpugiye mu nama, I will call you back after this meeting or after the meeting. Do you get it? That is to call someone back. You can also say, please, my friend, can I call you back later? Can I call you back later? Ese naza kuguhamagara mu kanya. Can I call you back later? Kuko wasanze missed calls ziwe cyangwa ye imwe. Then you can say, can I call you back later? I am somehow busy now. I am somehow busy now. Ubu ndasa nuhuze. Urebye ndahuze. I am somehow busy now. Somehow. To call someone back. To call back. Kuza guhamagara umuntu mu gihe wasanze yakubuze. You are going to say, I am going to call you back later. Fantastic. Then here we have to call for. Guhamagarira. To call for ni guhamagarira abantu. kwitabira ikintu runaka, kureka ibintu runaka. That is to call for. For example, you can say, here to call for is to demand publicly, to demand people, to demand the public, to demand publicly. Gusaba, guhamagarira, gusaba abantu kureka ikintu runaka. That is to call for. For example, you can say, after too many accidents, nyuma y'impanuka nyinshi cyane, the police called for drivers to be careful while driving. The police called for drivers to be careful while driving. Nyuma y'impanuka nyinshi, abapolisi cyangwa se polisi yahamagariye abashoferi kwitonda cyane cyangwa kwitwararika mu gihe batwaye. That is to call for. For example, you can say, the government called for the citizens of Rwanda to be careful while driving their vehicles. Ni ukuvuga ngo leta yahamagariye abaturage b'igihugu cyabo kwitonda cyane mu gihe batwaye ibinyabiziga byabo. That is to call for. Guhamagarira. Good. Then the last phrasal verb of today is this one. To call out. To call out. Do you know the meaning of call out in English language? To call out is to shout or speak loudly in order to get someone's attention. To shout or to speak loudly in order to get someone's attention. To shout or to speak loudly in order to get someone's attention. For example, I can say, hey, don't do that. That time I am calling out. Don't do that, please. That time I am calling out. Oh, Mary, stop doing that. That is to call out. Nuvuga ngo nukuvuga n'ijwi riranguruye kugira ngo uri gukora ikintu kitari cyiza cyangwa se kugira ngo uhwiture umuntu runaka. That is to call out. For example, I can say, yesterday I called out her name. Nagerageje kuvuga izina rye n'ijwi riranguruye, but she didn't hear me. I called out her name, but she didn't hear me. Oh, don't do that, please. Wikora ibyo bintu. I am calling out. Oh, stop shouting. Do you see? That is to call out. Just you can't call out when you have the low voice. No? Ntabwo ushobora guhamagara abantu cyangwa kugira umuntu ave mu byo arimo cyangwa akurebe uvuge stop shouting please. No. Stop shouting please. Do you see? That is to call out. Are we together? To call out. Kugerageza kuzamura ijwi kugira ngo umuntu akumve. Very fantastic. Then after getting this lesson, it's up to you. I have finished my responsibility, my duty. Namaze ngewe inshingano zanjye zirarangiye. It's up to you to have a lot of examples by using call off, call round, call around, call out, call for, yes, and call back. Kugira ngo ubyumve neza nawe kora a lot of sentences. Kora interuro zitandukanye in order to understand this lesson. Kugeza ubu ngubu rero dufite ibitabo byiza nihuse tukagira icyo twita ishuri ryiza ry'Icyongereza. We have a very good class. Tukagira n'iki na WhatsApp group abanyeshuri bigiraho. Kugeza ubu ngubu nanone dufite gahunda yo kuza umunyeshuri araza hano akavuga. Uragerageza ukavuga Icyongereza tukakubaza ibibazo tukaguha igitabo, ariko igitabo si cyo cy'ingenzi. No, ahubwo icy'ingenzi cyane gikomeye cyane muri ibyo nubwo igitabo kizagufasha kizagufasha byinshi, cy'ingenzi cyane ni ukongera confidence muri wowe. Icy'ingenzi cyane ni ukugerageza kugaragaza ko hari icyo umaze kugeraho mu Cyongereza. Nubwo igitabo nacyo ari very important. Then you should come and register yourselves in order to participate in these competitions. Kugira ngo witabire aya marushanwa, ngwino wiyandikishe kugira ngo tuzaguhitemo. Good. I am Teacher Jasper. We are together for the next lessons. Bye bye. See you next time.